1, 2, 3, 4.
Hi, I'm Pat Doolittle. I'm an employee of the Parks and Rec Department for the City of San Jose. I'm a therapeutic specialist. In this video, I'm going to present 2 approaches to sketching. This is the sketch we'll be doing with a pencil and using the same object. This is the sketch we'll be doing with the pen. Sketching is a quick form of drawing. Sketching can be done with lots of different approaches, a variety of materials such as crayons, markers, chalk, paint, ink, charcoal, or electronically using a stylus or your fingertips with an app on a tablet or a smartphone. For the pencil sketch, you will need the following: a pencil sharpener, an eraser, paper, and an object. And today we'll be sketching the apple. I'll be using the following techniques to make a pencil sketch in order to create the illusion of volume. So we'll be using light pressure, dark pressure, an eraser to show a highlight, lines close together, lines far apart, overlapping lines, stipples, and scribbles. Using the pencil techniques I just demonstrated, I will put them together to sketch this apple. And using the same techniques can be used to sketch a variety of objects. For the ballpoint pen drawing sketch, you will need the following materials: a ballpoint pen and paper. We'll also be reviewing the same techniques we reviewed with the pencil. They'll be a little bit different. The light lines, heavy pressure, lines far apart, lines close together, lines overlapping, scribbles, and stipples. Using the pencil techniques I just demonstrated, I will put them all together. Remember, we're doing a sketch. A sketch is a form of a quick drawing. It's not meant to be a finished piece of art. This is just to record an idea or help me practice. Okay, so this side of the apple is a pretty firm line. This side of the apple is in the shade. The light is coming from this direction. So I'm using the techniques I showed at the beginning. I'm using space of line, I'm using light pressure, and I'm using dark pressure. And the goal here is to take a flat page and use these different line techniques in order to show a dimensional object. Okay, so there's our apple. Now, the apple also has a shadow beneath the apple. This area here, it's darker than the apple. And then there's a reflected light which comes in here, and then there's the shadow of the apple. And I'm using the light pressure for the shadow because this is more ambient light, even though it does have a direction, but it's not a sharp shadow. Sometimes when you're setting up your still life, if you're using a really bright light, you'll have a very sharp and defined shadow, but when you're using natural light, you'll have a softer shadow. So again, I'm using the techniques. I'm using spacing to describe lighter areas, and I'm using close lines to define that light pressure to define the shadow. And I'm just gonna add a little more darkness on the apple itself, and then I'm gonna come in with the eraser, and I want to show you how the eraser is really helpful hitting those highlights. So there's a highlight there, and there's a highlight over here, and there's a highlight here because there's light coming from the direction of the arrow going across the apple. So there we are. There's the pencil sketch of the apple. Now, using the ballpoint pen to sketch, I'll do the following techniques. Remember, we want to use light pressure. This is a little trickier with a pen. It takes some practice. This is where you want to, another way to think about this is you're trying to make a very light line, very little pressure. Now I'm going to show you how a lot of pressure looks. So I'll make a darker line. And if you've been writing all your life, grabbing your pen and making really dark lines, the lighter lines are going to be more challenging to learn. If you've been doing very light writing with your pen, then the darker lines are going to be more difficult. So this tonal variation between the light pressure and the dark pressure is what you will use to define the shape of the apple. Also, the same applies with the pen as with the pencil. Lines that are far apart create a lighter color. Lines that are closer together create a darker shade. This is lighter than this. In addition to making lines, you can do cross-hatching, which is basically it's just making lines in a different direction to create a darker tone. You can use scribble marks. You can use stipple marks. And all these marks, these various marks, are there to show the volume and shadows of the apple. Okay, so now I'm going to be starting the drawing. You want to, whenever you can, you want to put your object in the center of the page. This might not be what you want to do for a finished work of art, but this, remember, this is sketching, and this is helping you observe an item and to quickly record what you are observing. And you want to be able to get all of it on your page. So I'm going to draw the apple in the center of the page. I'm using the light pressure right now to kind of get the general shape of the apple, and then I'm going to start to use the shading techniques that I just discussed to describe how the light is hitting the apple. It's that light hitting the apple that helps us understand the shape of the apple. The bottom part of the apple is a little bit darker than the top of the apple in terms of where the light is hitting. The light is coming from this direction and also a little bit from the top. So on a pen drawing, I'm not able to use the eraser to create the highlight, so I have to observe where the highlight is and leave some white paper showing to describe that highlight. So I've got a highlight kind of right there. I'll have a highlight over here with some shading around the stem, and then a little more shading over here on this side. And underneath the apple there's a shadow, and There's a part of the shadow that's very dark that's close to the apple, and then there's part of the shadow that's a little more diffuse, and I'm using the light pressure. And also I'm spacing my lines a little further apart to describe a lighter tone. And it's interesting as you watch shadows, sometimes you'll see them more defined than other times. This one's very diffuse. So I kind of have shadows within a shadow. And it's generally the shape of the apple, sort of an oval shape. And it's these details of the shading and the cast shadow that help others understand your drawing. Okay, so there we go. We've got an apple drawn with a ballpoint pen. In closing, I want to remind you that it's very important to sign the sketch and date the sketch. Here's my signature, there's the date. This way you'll have a record of your drawing interest. You may sketch because you enjoy it. You will improve your observation skill and eye-hand coordination. And here's what the research substantiates about any form of art making. The practice of art making can make you feel calmer and more relaxed. This is true whether you're an experienced artist or not. No matter what your skill level, you will benefit from the practice of making art.